Hey, this is Tony with Salt Strong, and in this video I just wanted to share some clarification between Bucktail jigs and Flair Hawk jigs. There seems to be a little bit of confusion about the two. A lot of people will mistakenly confuse them as being the same thing when they're really not. They're made out of different materials, and also they have a much different profile than one another. So I'm going to talk about that in this video. And why that's important is because you could be fishing an area where Flair Hawk jigs are being a lot more productive due to the profile and the action and what they're made out of, as opposed to Bucktail jigs. And if you think they're the same thing, you're going to go to the store and buy the wrong ones and end up not catching any fish. So it's very important to know the difference between the two. So first, as I mentioned, the material that they're made out of is different. Bucktails are going to be made out of basically what they're called, bucktail. It is the hair or the fur from a deer's tail. And Flair Hawks, they're actually made from a synthetic fiber. If you had to compare it to something, it's almost like very, very thin strands of monofilament. So that is the difference as far as what they are made out of. And because of that difference, that will affect the profile of the bait, which is the next difference. The profile of Bucktails is going to be much smaller than that of a Flair Hawk jig. And one main reason being, when the bucktail or the hair gets wet, when it's in the water, it's going to basically make itself smaller. Those hairs tend to like to stick to each other as it's going through the water, so it's going to create a much smaller profile. And then the Flair Hawk, these fibers don't hold water. So as it's going through the water, these fibers just flow. You know, they're not sticking together, they're just moving around freely. And also, when you take it out of the water, these fibers are going to dry off much quicker. You know, you can just shake the lure, shake the water off. When you're fishing with a bucktail, those fibers tend to stay wet for quite some time. So that's another difference there. Now also, you're going to notice on the Flair Hawk, this has a very long tail on it. And because of this tail, you really don't need to use a trailer. This tail almost acts as a trailer for the jig. A lot of people that use bucktails, they will add a trailer that will increase the profile of the bucktail and give it a little bit more action. You know, if you add a curly tail grub or something to one of these bucktails, can definitely be ideal for flounder, redfish, and all sorts of species when fishing around bridges, inlets, or passes. And then the Flair Hawk jig, like I said, it typically will have this tail on there, and if you want to make the profile smaller, you can. You can just simply cut the tail down a little bit, however far you need to, and that will make the profile a bit smaller. Also, you could also cut some of the fibers off and make the profile even smaller that way. But if I'm using these jigs, these Flair Hawk jigs, I'm typically going after some pretty big fish around the inlets and passes, so I want to use that really big profile to imitate, you know, big bait fish, big mullet, or anything like that, as opposed to the bucktail, which would be, again, smaller, harder for those bigger fish to find in a large body of water like an inlet or a pass, unless you had that go right across that fish's face. So hopefully this video clears things up a bit on the difference between Bucktail jigs and Flair Hawks. I know there's some other differences out there, so definitely feel free to leave a comment down below if you have any additional tips to talk about the differences between the two. Also, if you haven't done so already, be sure to check out our Salt Strong Insider Club, where we guarantee you'll start catching more fish in less time. So definitely check that out. So that will wrap up this video. Again, have any questions or comments, drop them down below. Until next time, I'll see you on the next video.